All right. Hey, everybody.
Yeah, sure. Cameras are good. Get
At
all
least
the
for the
beards
beginning
on you.
here. Oh, yeah.
I'm trying to catch up with you on the beard.
Yeah, I need to do something with mine. Trim it or something. But yeah, it's all good.
Looks fine to me.
I appreciate it, sir. All right, just let me know when you're ready for me to get started.
Yeah, whenever you're ready,
All
go
right.
for it. Aiming for if you want to start Q&A about 40 minutes into the hour, 45 minutes into the
Yeah,
hour,
yeah.
that should be plenty.
All right, that's fine. I should be able to make that. All righty then. Let's go ahead and
All
get this
right.
thing started. All
Thanks,
right.
Adam.
No worries, Adrian. All right, so hopefully everybody's here for a little bit of a talk on online security, online anonymity. Um, Go ahead and put this out there. This is going to be a talk about staying anonymous online-ish, staying safe online, hiding who you are online, sort of thing of that nature. I'm not going to go into extreme detail on any particular part of this, but I will give you a lot of overview. There might be a little deeper uh, information on some aspects than others. It's more of a general overview and things from my perspective that I've either tried or I do on a regular basis. So yeah, so let's go ahead and get this started here. And for those of you who missed having a walkout song for me this time, I'll just use my standard one. All right, sorry about that. I had to throw it in there. And for those of you who are interested in trying to find out more about me, every picture in that intro right there, or that video, is actually a picture from my family back in the mountains of eastern Kentucky there. So, whoa, that jumped way ahead. All right, let's do this. Let's go ahead and get into the obligatory who am I slide. First of all, short answer is I am Adam Compton. I've been doing this for a number of years. I don't know, going on a couple decades at this point. I've been a programmer, a pen tester, a researcher, father to two great little boys. I'm a son, I'm a brother, I'm a husband, all of those standard things there. Current employer is a Trusted Sec. They make it amazing for me to be able to do this kind of talks, come out and give presentations. This one isn't coming out to give one, but still, I have to give them a big thank you out there. Oh, what else is there about me that anybody cares about right now? There'll be a contact slide at the very end if anybody wants to go and contact me a little bit offline. So going back to why talk on this topic? Well, there's many different reasons, I guess. If you're going out, watching conference videos, attending conferences and all that, you're going to see the inevitable intro to OSINT or how to perform OSINT or OSINT for red teamers, stuff like that at almost every conference. I've given a few of those myself, honestly. And there's also entire conferences like Layer 8 that is more or less dedicated to social engineering, OSINT, things of that nature. There's um, other little side talks that are given at a lot of conferences for an OSINT track, stuff like that. There's always a lot of that. There's not as many on the staying safe, staying anonymous online, but that's not to say they're not out there. The ones I have seen that are out there typically bounce around the concept of you're a red teamer. How do you build out a profile so you can use it to do your social engineering, do your exploitation, or it might just be something along that lines. Or another aspect of the OSINT anti-OSINT or online security talks I've seen have been yep, time to become a hermit living out in the middle of the Yukon somewhere. Here's how you cut all ties to everything. I didn't want to do either one of those because that's not what I've seen most of them, like my family and I talk to, they need. It's usually this concept that, well, how do I make sure that people don't steal my identity, or how do I make sure that people don't um, guess what my bank account number is and jump into it, any number of things like that, or take over my Facebook page and all that. So how do you go about being safe online? How do you go on separating yourself from your internet identity? And that's why I wanted to give this talk, is because I don't really see too many of those out there. I'm sure there are some out there, and I give links to other talks at the end, but they cover other aspects of this entire world of online security anti-OSINT. So for those of you who might be new to OSINT or what have you, I wanted to throw in a quick little one slide on what is OSINT, a super short version of this. It stands for Open Source Intelligence. There's tons of different definitions out there, but they all boil down to basically the same concept of it is the collection and analysis of data obtained from publicly accessible sources. And that covers most uses of OSINT out there. Why does somebody want to perform OSINT? Well, they want to find information about someone, something that they're not willing to give up themselves. Well, you can do this because in a modern age, we tend to put lots and lots of information about ourselves, about what we do, about everything we work with online. Social media. Everybody has a social media account out there almost. Your parents, your grandparents, your cousins, your nieces, nephews, everybody wants to have a Facebook page, a TikTok account, or whatever the case is. They want to have that out there. So many people wanting to do YouTube blogs and all that. So people are just flooding the internet with information about themselves. When you log on to those, you usually set up a profile. You put in what your name is, what other accounts do you have, what's your full name, when were you born, all kinds of stuff. Where did you go to school? Who are your relatives? There's tons and tons of information out there. Another great one, if you're wanting to look into it, is ancestry sites, lineage sites. People sign up for those, and well, if you want to find out who's related to who and what their birthdays are, those have lots of great information. But that's not what this talk is about. Just talking about the kind of information that is out there. If I'm going to be looking up OSINT on somebody, I'm going to be looking through forums and blog posts they might have written. Maybe there's something awesome in there that I can glean information from. Data leaks. If I'm going after a company, I might look at what's been uploaded to Pastebin or Pastebin-like sites on data leaks, looking for passwords, going through document metadata, looking for usernames. The list just goes on and on and on. There's criminal history lookups you can look up on people. There's who owns what property, how much they paid for their taxes, stuff like that. All of this stuff is online in most states and most cities, counties. They do it for free just to put it out there because it's open information. Now, some of that you can do something about, some you can't, but the thing is there's all this information about you out there and people can do stuff with it. Well, we've talked about OSINT. Well, what is anti-OSINT or online security, whatever you want to refer to it as? Well, in short, as it says there, I came up with this little one, or I might have been influenced by some article I read, I don't know. But regardless, the little quote I'm going with here is, in short, it is the process by which someone or one attempts to prevent the gathering of accurate OSINT about a person or thing. We'll come back to that accurate part in a moment. But when I ran into this whole concept by my family and all that, just to see what they thought about me doing a talk about this. And one of the things is, well, why are you concerned about it? Don't you have anything to hide and all this? And they're like, well, isn't that the stuff that sounds, if you're going to go into the realm of doing all this stuff that you're talking about, isn't that the stuff like what spies do, or those like the Unabomber and hermits who live off the grid somewhere, or conspiracy theorists, all that stuff? I'm like, well, true. Those kind of individuals or organizations do this kind of anti-OSINT, obviously, in many times, in many cases, but it's not just for them. It's for a lot of other people too. It doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, there's going to be some reason. Well, there again, why is online privacy important? Well, there's any number of reasons. You can read through these. I'll touch on some of them, but for example, if you're going to go and apply for a new job, odds are that someone on that decision board, on that interview board, hiring board, whatever, is going to do a little bit of OSINT against you. They're going to go out online, see if they can find, have you done anything coding-wise and uploaded it to GitHub? Have you done any videos on YouTube? Can they find, references to you on various conference sites? But in the process, they're also going to look for social media accounts and things of that nature. This is probably before they've ever even met you. They've just got your resume and they're reading over it and they're going to go out and look about you. So this is helping build their first impression of you. Maybe they find something in there of you doing questionable activities, or you've posted some questionable photos. So I'm not saying that any decision they make should be based on what they see, but we are humans. This is what you're presenting to the world as your first impression to many people. So it is going to possibly bias what they think of you. Also, a lot of companies, well, we'll get into this in a moment, but they do monitor your social media account. My wife was a teacher for a number of years, and when she signed on there, she had to agree that they are going to monitor her social media account to make sure that everything that she's posting out there reflects properly back on the school district. Personally, I don't agree with that, but that is what their requirement, their rule was. So in that place, privacy is very important. What else is there? Oh, companies in general. If you're signed up for a free service, or if you're signed up for a free email account or using something that is you're not paying for, well, I hate to break it to you, but very, very few of those things are truly free. What you're paying with is your information, your browsing habits, your purchasing habits, your search habits. They're presenting you with ads that you may or may not click on, which gives them some revenue back. All kind of information like that. You are the product at that point. They might even do it for loyalty accounts. Like if you go to your local big chain grocery store, you're probably going to get get an offer for a loyalty card. Well, if you use that loyalty card, you get discounts. Well, what they're doing is they're taking that purchasing information you applied on the application, as well as who and or not, but what you bought there, and they're going to use that for market research, for targeted advertisements towards you. They might even sell that data to someone else that's going to aggregate it with other data to help build a better profile of the people who buy a certain product, or the people who shop at a certain chain of stores, or even possibly about you personally. So if you don't want to be profiled in that way or have that kind of information, try to avoid that kind of interaction. Don't sign up for the loyalty cards if you don't want to, or do what we talk about later and sign up for it under a different name. Therefore, it's getting information. They're still getting their information, but it's not directly tied back to you, things of that nature. Also, just from a pen tester's perspective, when we do social engineering attacks, one thing that we do is we go out and search for people who work for certain companies, because like Facebook will ask you, who do you work for? There's other social media accounts that allow for this too, but then you can search for, show me everybody who works for this certain company. LinkedIn is great for that as well. Then I can build a list of names of people who work there and then target them for phishing exercises, stuff like that. This is all purely OSINT, things that we can gather from online. And all these things some of them are not always bad, some of them are not always good, but it's all using information that you're providing to the world. Also, criminals can use it for identity theft, setting up accounts in your name, buying stuff in your name, doing illegal things in your name, if they can steal your identity through this. Let's go ahead and move on. Well, do you need online privacy? Short answer is yes. Everybody needs to be aware of their online footprint, their information they're providing out there, the kind of privacy that they're giving up in many times, because everybody has something they want to hide or they want to obscure. Some of the things I've already talked about. Others are sensitive data, like your financials, your social security number, date of birth, mother's maiden name, all things that could be possibly used to steal your identity. Doing pen tests, doing online OSINT, all that. I've come across any number of documents people have posted or shared out that have this information in it, just posted to the world out there, not obscured, not restricted. Either they don't know it or they don't care. But either way, this is critical information about who you are. I highly recommend you protect that. As I said before, employers might try to monitor your online presence. If you've done some questionable things in your past that you're not very keen of people knowing anymore, maybe you don't want to have that posted out there. Maybe you shouldn't. Well, for example, in some of the news I saw not too long ago. If you go and rob a bank or rob an armored car, maybe you don't want to post videos of you doing that or counting the money afterwards and bragging about it. Not saying I condone illegal activities, but maybe if they had a little more online privacy, they wouldn't have got caught doing the bad things they were doing. Just saying. Also, if you live under a repressive or tyrannical government or something like that, the activities you do online, if they can be traced back to you, you could face prisons, fines, prison sentences, possibly death, depending on what it was you're doing. Having a way to separate yourself from that activity or that data that you're providing is going to be critical to these people. If you're in witness relocation, or you just have someone you're trying to avoid, whether it's an ex-coworker, it's a previous significant other, or if it's just some online stalker, anything in that realm, you're not going to want to give them any ammunition as to how to find you, how to contact you, where you live, stuff like that. So keeping that information offline goes a long ways toward that as well. So, like I said, basically everybody has information that they want to protect, or information that is critical to their safety. That's why this is super important. All right, fine. I've tried to scare you enough into trying to be aware of your online security and all that. Now, what can you do about it? Especially for those of you like me or many others I know who already have presented so much information to the internet. I've got a Gmail account, I've got YouTube channels, I've got Facebook account, I've got LinkedIn account, I've got all this data out there about myself already. Well, what could I do if I wanted to restrict some of that data? Well, first of all, it's out that you can't get rid of all of it. You can do a great job about it and try to limit it, but you're not ever going to be able to get rid of all of it. Next is to try to figure out how to remove as much of it as you can. Some of it you're not going to be able to remove, as I said before. Some of it you'll be able to change, but you won't be able to remove. That goes back to that anti-OSINT statement I had at several slides back that said, trying to prevent them from gathering accurate OSINT about you. Well, if they gather data, but that data is incorrect, it's not going to do them any good. So if you can change it, that's going to be go a long way. Like, for example, if you go to delete an account and it says that, oh, I'm sorry, you can't delete this account, but you can change your data. Well, change what your email address is, change what your home address is, change your birthday to January 1st, 1970 or whatever, unless that is your birthday and you want to pick something else. But just change it to nonsensical data and then save it. Then whenever your data gets aggregated with a bunch of others for market research, or there's a data breach, or somebody hacks into your account, they're not going to see the real data in there because you've changed it. Well, if you can delete your account, I still recommend you to change it, because just because you flag it for deletion and you can't log into it anymore doesn't mean it's removed from their servers, it's removed from their databases. It might still be in there and may be able to be accessed through some other mechanism, or through a data breach, or through market dump, stuff like that. So there again, change it before you delete it. So, okay, how do you go about doing this? Well, first thing I would say is try to build a list of all the accounts that you know that you have. You have a Facebook, a Gmail, a MySpace, whatever it is, whatever accounts you have, make a list of those. Any that you don't want your name on, you're going to go in and try to change your data and delete it. There's other services like NameCheck, Check Usernames, and several others as well, where if you have a standard username that you use, you can go put that in there and it'll tell you all the places that you've created an account, or somebody using that name has an account in the past. I've done this on myself and I'm like, wow, I forgot I actually created an account over there, because it's like for some free service that's like, oh, I needed that one time. I created an account, used my standard username for it, or my online handle for it, and then forgot about it. So this helps me keep track of what I've done. I go back and flag those for deletion later on. For each online account that you identify or that you know of, like I said, change your data, delete the account. For other ones that may not show up under NameCheck or Check Usernames, or ones that you already know, just search for them. Bing, Google, DuckDuckGo, any service like that. If you're trying to prevent your data from being online, I probably wouldn't use Google or Bing or something like that. DuckDuckGo or one of the other more security conscious search engines might be a better use for your time there. But search for your username, search for your email address, stuff like that. Basically do OSINT on yourself. See what you're finding out there. Anything that you find, if it's on a website like a blog post or in a forum or wherever it is, and you don't want it there, try to first see if you can delete it yourself. 2, see if they have a way to contact them for data removal, whether that's through some form or application or just an email or whatever the case is. Sometimes it's possible. If it's showing up in search engine results like on Google or Bing, you can contact them as well to have it flagged for deletion. There's ways to limit this. As I said before, you're never going to be able to get rid of all of it. It's just at this point trying to manage how much of the information is still out there. All right, so you've went through, you're aware of why you need to watch your online security. You've tried to go back and minimize your footprint to the internet. You've done everything that you can on that. So you've got a pretty good foothold of it now. Now, how do you maintain that? Well, first, I would say go back every, I don't know, whatever's convenient to you. I do it about every 3 to 6 months, depending on how busy I am, and do a periodic check on that information again. See where it's out there. See what's going on. Just as you go in at least once a year, maybe twice a year to your credit agencies, Equifax, TransUnion, all those, to do a credit check on yourself or a credit history check to see if any new accounts have been opened in your name. I would recommend you doing the same thing for your online security as well. Where else has my name been used? Where else has information on me? Just go back and periodically do that. Another thing I would highly recommend you do is freeze all your credit. Freeze your credit at all credit agencies, Equifax, TransUnion, Experian, Novus. There's any number of reasons for that. First and foremost is so that if anybody does a credit check on you or tries to open an account in your name or anything dealing with your credit, you're going to be alerted to it. Granted, in order to be alerted to it, they have to have your email and phone number and name, but it's a trade-off on what are you trying to protect there more than the others. So just be aware of that. Now, this is something I'm going to repeat multiple times throughout the rest of these slides, is that I am not a lawyer. I do not have legal background. I do not have legal training. If you do something I mention here or talk about and you get in trouble for it, that's on you. I'm not trying to advocate doing anything illegal any place along here, but depending on where you live, what state you live in, what the laws are for your particular little district, things of that nature, just be aware of that.
It's not on us either.
There you go. Very good. So it's boiling down to, a lot of us grow up being taught, tell the truth, always tell the truth. Well, I'm here to tell you that sometimes you can lie, especially when filling out forms, applications, things of that. As previously, when I said go in and change your data to random nonsensical data before you delete it, same thing here. When you go to fill out some application, form, questionnaire, whatever it is, many times there's all of those questions on there or fill in the blanks are not necessary. They're not critical. Some of them are, some of them aren't. So the ones that are not necessary or are optional, leave them blank. Ones that are required, if you're doing this in person with somebody or you have the ability to talk to a person about it, ask them, is it really required? What kind of information do you need about me? Stuff like that. And if there's anything in there that isn't absolutely critical, see if you can get around filling that in or filling in some other random information. I don't know how many times when I'm filling something out that it asks me for my home address and I just give them like the White House address, or which is probably not a great idea, or you give them like Times Square or something like that. Just give them a random address, or you give them an address from your favorite TV show, whatever the case is, so that it's not directly tying back to you. Also, if somebody isn't, if you walk up and talk to somebody, if you're like me, well, I like to talk anyway, but if you're like me or you encounter somebody like me and you're waiting in line at the grocery store, you're waiting in line to get onto your favorite theme park ride, whatever the case is, you might strike up conversations with people. You meet somebody at a company get together or at a conference or like that, and you're just talking to them. Unless it's like you're trying to recruit them for your company or you're trying to talk to them, telling them where you work isn't always necessary. Trying to tell them where you live, your full name, stuff like that. You don't have to tell them the real truth there. Also, going back to the filling out forms, application, all that. If I'm filling out a form for, let's say, a garbage service, a new garbage service to come to my house to pick up garbage, do they need to know who my employer is? Not really. So you can put something else in there if you need to, whatever the case is. Just trying to limit how much information of yours is out there. Also, to maintain your privacy is, if you're like most people, you're going to have friends, family, someone out there who knows you and is also on the internet. They're probably going to try to share pictures of you or information about you online. You can ask them not to do that. Ask them not to tag you in pictures. Ask them not to associate your name with those pictures or those events or whatever. You're going to get some strange looks, but usually, in my experience, they're going to understand to some degree, think you're that odd person in the family, and just let it go and try not to associate as much. But you can try to limit that kind of information as well. If you're concerned about people knowing where your home at, where you live, and you've done a good job about preventing that already, well, you could always set up another physical address or another Dropbox location to receive your mail, to receive packages. I do stuff like this for certain online companies, or if I'm ordering something off of Etsy or something like that, I don't always have it come to the house. You can set up a PO box if you want, or you can set up a service through like the UPS store or mailbox.com or any of these other services. The post office is a good one in that it's almost everywhere, but they don't, to my knowledge, they don't accept deliveries from like UPS, FedEx, stuff like that. And in order to sign up to it, you have to provide them some information, and it is tight, and it is a federal organization. It is a government organization there. So if you want to avoid that, that's fine. Something like the UPS store, which I use, is actually really good because they do accept FedEx deliveries. They accept all kind of deliveries that way. It is a private company. It's not a federal company, I should say, not a government company. So some of the amounts of information that they require is optional. So you can get around a lot of issues with that, and just give that address out anytime you want something delivered, or they ask you what your address is. Just give them that UPS store address. It's even better if it's not in your local town, but it's in like another town nearby that you can get to easily. That way it's another step away. If you want to give out a phone number to somebody, or a website requires it, you could either use something like Google Voice or something like that to get an alternate phone number, or you could go and get a burner phone. Go get a prepaid phone from like Walmart or wherever, and just use that phone number. There's ways to separate yourself. And of course, absolute worst case, if you feel that you've been the victim of like identity theft, or there's some other issue with the social security number, you can go to the Social Security Administration and get a new social security number assigned to you. Personally, I don't do that. I feel that in my case, that'd be a horrible headache of going back and taking care of passports and all that. But if that is something that you need, you can always do that as well. All right, that's great. That's great. But you could take it a step further if you want, and actually make a full additional identity for yourself that you use for online purchases, that you use for a lot of your online interaction, stuff like that. I know several people who do something like this, and depending on your threat model, or your ability to accept certain levels of risk, you might do some of this, you might do all of this, you might do way more than this, but I'm just giving you a little feel for it right here. The standard concept for it right now is called a sock puppet. There's also negative connotations to it, that people will use sock puppet identities to troll people online, but that's not what I'm recommending here. Yes, you could use this technique to do that, but that's not what I'm advocating. A sock puppet is just an alternate online identity used to hide or obscure the identity of a person or a group of people, possibly if you want to share it among them. The kind of things that you're usually going to need is you'll need a name for whatever that sock puppet is. You can use your own if you want. You can create a fake one, completely random one. It could be nonsensical. It could be just your favorite celebrity, whatever. I don't recommend you try to completely impersonate a real or fictional or not fictional, a real living or dead person, because that's called identity theft, and I don't advocate identity theft. But if you want to just pick let's say like a combination of you and your brother's name, or use your middle name, or instead of your last name, use your grandmother's maiden name or something like that. Just so that it's something that you will still remember easily, but it isn't you, and it's probably not easily to be tracked back to you. Like, for example, if I wanted to use Campton for my last name instead of Compton, that's an easy typo, easy transcription error. I see a lot of that happening all the time. Or people call me Alan all the time instead of Adam. So I might just use Alan Campton or something like that. It's close enough to who I am, but it's not really me, and it's usually not going to be associated with me. So something like that you could use. Email. You're going to need a way to communicate with the internet. So email is a great way to do that. You could create a separate email account. Keep in mind, if you're just wanting to go really touching your toe into the waters of this, keep in mind that most email services allow you to just to put a plus sign at the end of your email address. So like my Gmail is adam.compton@gmail.com. So I could do adam.compton plus netflix@gmail.com and give that to my Netflix account. So anytime I receive an email from Netflix, it goes in there and I can filter on that. Now, yes, that is still tied to my real email account, but it's a way for me then to set up filters to know what comes from what, and at some point I could block and just delete everything that comes from that email address. So that's one way you could do it. You could set up another Gmail account or Outlook account, something like that. Those you do have to provide more information. They do require some level of authentication. Or you could go with something like Proton Mail or other secure encrypted email accounts that they don't ask too many questions. They don't maintain, or they do consider your privacy and try not to keep too much data on you. They do encrypt all the emails, all that. It's a great one for if you want to maintain some level of security and anonymity out there. At some point, you're probably going to want to buy something. If you can do it in cash, great. But cash isn't really an option for what you're doing. Prepaid gift cards. Prepaid gift cards are probably the way to go with that. Gift cards are, most online services allow that. You could even possibly fund like a PayPal account with a debit card if you wanted. I think that's still possible. Either way, those are things that aren't traced back to you, and you can provide whatever information you want when you're signing up for that debit card. If you want it to be auto refillable, usually you have to tie it to a bank account or something of that nature. So that's up to you if you want to do that. Phones, as I said before, burner phones are great. You can usually get those with little to no information needed from you to set them up. Pay for them with cash or with a prepaid debit card. That way there's no tracing back to you. Addresses, I've already talked about that. UPS Store is a good one on that. Browsers, here again, depending on how deep into the rabbit hole you want to go, you could use a browser to use a incognito mode, use a Tor enabled browser, use ad blocker. All these things are just layers upon layers of things you can do to help prevent websites, prevent companies from gathering information about you. A huge one that doesn't even need to be in a new identity, it's just a online security in general, is passwords. Maintain separate passwords for all accounts, especially for financials or anything that has any bit of critical information to you in it. Why is this important? Data leaks. Companies get breached, data gets leaked out there, and if they can associate your email address with that password, and then they can use something like name check or something like that to find where else you have an account, or guess that because you live in a certain town, it's very likely your bank is XYZ, or you've mentioned it somewhere. They might be able to log into your account with that password that it was stolen from some other website. If you do not reuse the same password, that's not going to be a concern. So just be aware of that. There's great password managers out there, applications, both cloud-based as well as you can put it on a thumb drive, do it on your laptop, whatever. There's great applications out there. Additionally, VPNs, use a VPN. I recommend this for everybody as well, if possible, especially if you're trying to maintain some level of obscurity between the internet and yourself. Get one that you trust. They're all not created equal. Some of them are a little more spy than others, meaning that they track your activity a lot better than others. And I try to avoid those. Find ones that you trust. They're always changing. There's new things, new VPNs coming out all the time. Just keep abreast of that and find one that you like. Additional thoughts, if you're wanting to do this, I'm building a full-on identity for red teaming, all that, you might want to try to create at least token social media pages for it if you're wanting it to be believable. That's beyond the scope of my talk right here, but those are just kind of things you need to be aware of. And if for some reason an account gets compromised, too much information gets known about it, people do start tying it back to you, be willing to destroy that account if needed. That's why you don't do anything critical with that account. Everything is tied to that alternate identity, and you delete it. And then you go through the process of creating a new one, and then you start over. Excuse me. It's just one of these things that if you make this sock account or sock puppet account your real identity, and you do so much with it, then you're not really separating it from you. You have to maintain some level of alternate identity. It is a role you're playing. It is an alternate identity you use for interacting on gaming websites. You use it for interacting with conferences, whatever the case is, and then you separate that from your real identity. So the only way this is going to work is if you maintain enough separation in there that you're able to destroy that alternate identity if the case comes up. As I said before, is this illegal? Well, I don't know. Depending on how far down the path you go on some of this, possibly. Depending on where you live, possibly. You're an adult. Use common sense on this. Use best judgment on this. Research the laws wherever you live and operate, if it's viable or not. And then do as you see fit with that. The things I'm recommending are not to be used to steal the identity of a particular person or something like that, or defraud or harm somebody, but it is things that you might want to be aware of. But still, try not to cause harm with this. And if you do get in trouble, not my fault. Just letting you know, these are the kind of things you can do to help restrict your internet presence a little. My slides will be posted up on, what did you call it, SCED? Okay, we posted up on the website after a while. I also posted up on, I'll put a link out on my Twitter account later on as well, if you want to find my slides as well as these resources. For example, it's like how to find, it's all the things I've talked about already. It's how to find your social media accounts, get a new social, freeze your credit, all that kind of stuff. Another good one down there to maintain eye out for is have I been pwned? It's a good one just to see for my email address or my sock puppet's email address. Has it been involved in a data breach somewhere along the line? A few parting thoughts here. What I've said during this presentation, this may not be for everyone. You may just want to touch your toe in the water on it a little bit, or you may want to jump in head first and go far beyond anything I've talked about on here. That's all on you and whatever your level of tolerance is for your online privacy, as well as how much pain you want to go through doing this, because everything I've talked about, there is a little bit of inconvenience with it, because you have to go through and pay for everything with cash or get debit cards to pay for it or things like that. There is inconvenience with that, but if you're willing to do that, great. If you're not, well, maybe you want to try something else then. To always just keep in mind that your privacy and your data are valuable to not just you, but to other people. And if you can prevent giving it away for free, great. If you can prevent giving it away at all, even better. But there again, it's up to how much tolerance you have for your information being out there. This presentation is just an overview into the online. You can go way deeper on any of the topics I've talked about, including setting up sock puppet accounts, doing OSINT, any of that. It's all out there. A few other videos that were out there, winning and quitting the privacy game, anti-OSINT. That's the typo right there. That should say anti-OSINT AF. All these are ones that I've watched that were great resources as well. they are going to touch on different aspects of what I talked on. They're not going to be in complete overlap. That first one up there, Tim Vetter, his is a very interesting one, as he kind of went full hermit almost with it, getting his family involved and all that, where they don't tell anybody about anything. And if you see a car behind you as you're driving home, drive past the mailbox until they're no longer there, and then come home. They went full on not letting anybody be able to find where they are, sort of thing. It's a great video. I definitely recommend you watching it. All these have great things about them in there. Finally, my info, I can be reached at Twitter at Titanus. I have a blog out on Hillbilly Storytime, YouTube videos out on Hillbilly Storytime at YouTube as well. My personal and my work email address there from TrustedSec. Okay, I think that covers everything. Got it in here around about 10:43-ish. If there's any questions that come up, I'll be around right now, and afterwards I'll be on Discord as well if people have any questions there. So
there are questions, Adam. There's a very healthy amount of chat in the Discord on this track.
Okay,
and
I'll see if I can answer them.
And go to webinar, but yeah, I was going to say never go full hermit.
Yeah. It's hard to come back. It's hard to come back.
It just I don't know. It depends on what kind of person you are. You know, some people are fine with that, but that seems stressful to me. But
if I was to ever retire, I think I might go full hermit out in the middle of Montana somewhere. But that's after I retire and kids are grown.
I've actually gotten resumes from people that have pretty much scrubbed the internet of any information, and I'm so used to using the internet, LinkedIn, stuff like that to kind of fill in the gaps on the resume, you know, and like I want to see some examples of them interacting with other humans. Like, is this a human I would want to interact with on a daily basis?
Right.
And when there's nothing out there about them, you know, it's a little tough. You know, it's kind of become a norm to at least find some information about somebody professionally online, if not personally.
Right.
So, a few questions about what VPN to choose. You know, there's so many options out there. It's such just exploded, you know, and surely some of them are run by the Venezuelan and Russian governments, right?
So I will refrain from recommending any VPN for the sole purpose that as soon as I say it, I can almost guarantee you it has been hacked or somebody's found an issue with it.
Yeah.
I switch VPNs probably about twice a year, honestly, just because I find out something about my particular VPN provider that I don't like, so I switch to another one. Or somebody's running a really good deal, like, oh, I've read great reviews of it, but they're up and coming. They're like, hey, I've got you can get a 50% discount on your yearly membership, or whatever. I'm like, okay, I'll check it out. But I try to find ones that are good to me at that moment. There's always been some great ones. I can go back and see what I have on my list of possibly good ones, and I can post that in Discord in a moment. I don't have that readily available right in front of me. But right now, a lot of like anything I do for my business through TrustedSec, I connect up to their corporate VPN, and I just go out through one of their portals and let it be handled there. But for my personal information, if it's going to my bank that I use, I don't necessarily use a VPN for that. If I'm going online, I might use a VPN, and it depends on what I'm using. And a lot of times, sometimes I'll just rely just on Tor for a lot of it. Just be aware that if somebody is monitoring the endpoint, they can do some heuristics to find out who you are. But I will try to get that information over onto Discord in a moment.
Yeah, so also if you're not in the Discord, highly recommend that. It's I'm sure you'll get some VPN recommendations in there. Even if you don't from us, people will be happy to.
Someone, yes.
Yeah, I personally use TunnelBear, and I know a lot of people don't like them because acquired them, but they were one of the only ones I could find that did multiple third-party audits on their software, their infrastructure, all that, which I respected that they did that.
That's what I use on my phone. I use TunnelBear on my phone, so.
Do you have any tips for managing multiple identities?
Get good at compartmentalization, honestly. I spent, you can go back and look at my LinkedIn and all that. I spent a good 10 years of my life working for federal government, and it was at a place where you do at work stays at work. What you do at home stays at home. So I got trained early on trying to separate two identities for myself, my work identity and my home identity. And that's just carried over. But basically, you can get notebooks, write down, keep a separate notebook for each identity if you want. In one, it's going to be fairly safe to do that as long as you're not concerned about somebody breaking into your house to find out your alternate identity. But yeah, you take a notebook, you write down all the information about that identity in there, its name, its address that you assigned to it, all that stuff, and maintain it that way. If you want to do it electronically, that's great. Just do it in an encrypted container, something like that, in a note folder, something like that. I tend to go old school with that and not try to keep that kind of information even associated with my other accounts on my computer. So I write it down in notebooks, stuff like that if I have to. But other than that, that's my general recommendation for that, and just get good at compartmentalization.
So personally, I use my password manager to manage that kind of stuff. The details, you know, if I have other identities that I use, like I actually created an identity just to see if I could create a fake company to win vendor security awards. And I had to build that whole personality. He had his own LinkedIn and everything. And what I did in Chrome, at least, I think you can do this in other browsers as well. Like Firefox has some way of compartmentalizing different things where cookies are stored in a different location. You know, there's no way one identity is going to leak to the other. But Chrome, like the little circle with your avatar, if you click that, you can create other persons. And it makes it super easy to switch to that other profile. Like when I do sales demos for Thinkst, I have a sales demo one. So like when I'm typing a domain, you know, it doesn't pull something from my history, from my personal stuff into the sales demo. And you see that autocomplete for a moment as I'm typing a URL, stuff like that. So that can be handy.
One thing I would recommend also is something I do is I have a bunch of VMs. I'll have one VM for my anything I do financially is done on that VM. Anything I do that is development based or with my coding environment, I do on another VM. That way, anything I do for my work laptop itself is for work related. I switch over to one of the VMs to do my other work. It helps keep another level of separation and stuff like that. If I'm wanting to spin up a new sock puppet account, I'll fire off another VM, and then I'll go in and set everything up in there. I'll set up a password manager in there. I'll set up Chrome or Firefox, whatever, in there for that account. So yeah.
Do you use separate password managers? Is a question that we got.
Yes. Well, I use the same password manager, but different instances of it. One for each account. So it sounds like you use the same one, just
offline, or is it like a cloud sync password manager?
I use what is it here? I'm trying to remember which one I'm using offhand.
KeePass, something like that.
It's either KeePass or LastPass. I have it offline on a thumb drive as well, but I also have it associated with whichever VM I'm in at the time as well. So
yeah, so there's
I find them handy because you can always go into them and say generate a random password. It generates 14 characters, 20 characters with random uppercase, lowercase. I just do that. It's easier than me having to remember it.
Yeah.
So
there's a few questions I'm gonna pass on. Like if you have time after this, Adam, if you just want to scan through the track 1 channel, there's some really good questions. But at this point, it's too many for me to read them all out.
No worries, no worries. I'll jump on there and answer what I can.
Okay.
Good then. Let me stop showing.
Yeah. So last question here that I'm going to read out is any ideas for not providing biometric data for multi-factor apps? I guess some apps, like on the phone, ask for fingerprint. I'm not sure.
Does it allow for other options on there? Use a different finger? I don't know. Get your sister to come in there and put her finger down on it? I don't know. Yeah, walk up to ask your mailman every time they stop by, like, hey, I need your finger a minute. Come here. I mean, unless you're willing to go to that level of separation, your biometrics are tied to you. You could You could scar up your finger if you want. I don't recommend bodily harm. You can. I've known people who were secretaries for years and their fingerprints wear off, which makes biometrics really hard for them at that time. But yeah,
that's not a
it's
good
kind of
recommendation.
yeah,
That's not
built in. No, it's built into your genetics. It's really hard to change your biometrics. Sorry.
Yeah, so apparently the person asked a question. There's an app that only gives you Face ID or fingerprint as your only option for unlocking that
Wow.
multi-factor app, which kind of sucks. Like most I've seen will at least let you set a PIN instead of using biometrics. So my suggestion would be, do you have to use that multi-factor app?
Right.
You know, because I know a lot, if you're using one time, they said dog paw. I don't know if, I was wondering if like your elbow, you know, something else would register as a fingerprint.
I have heard that other parts of the body can be used. I'll leave it there, but
yeah, I was gonna say, do I have to mute you?
It's still tied to you, so. But
so
yes.
If you're just doing one-time password, something like that, you don't have to use the Google Authenticator app. You know, maybe you don't have to use Duo. Like if you can actually register the multi-factor authentication app yourself, like I use Authy for some one-time passwords. I use 1Password actually supports doing those codes. So there's actually maybe there's a chance you can use a different app. Is the only idea I have.
Right. And the other option is whatever is requiring you to use that, do you have to use that? If it's your company mandating you have to use it, maybe there's not another option, but talk to the IT manager, see if they have an alternate way for you to do it or something like that. Or if it's an application that's requiring that, is there another application that doesn't have that requirement that's just as good? I don't know. I mean, you always have the option of just saying no and going elsewhere, possibly, I guess. But yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So I think that's about it.
Sounds great. I'm going to jump over to Discord and see what else is saying over there and try to answer what I can. So.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Adam.
Thank you, Adrian. Thank you for all of the BSides Knoxville crew over there, and thanks for everybody chiming in.